Well, the holiday season can be very exciting with traditions, gatherings, and lots of events. But for kids, especially those with learning or thinking differences, this can also be a very overwhelming time. Keeping the holidays fun can be an extra challenge for neuro-divergent families. According to the National Center for Learning Disabilities, 1 in 5 children in the U.S. has learning and thinking differences like ADHD and dyslexia. Joining us now to talk more about this is Dr. Andrew Kahn, a psychologist who specializes in working with people who learn and think differently. And he's also an associate director at the nonprofit understood.org. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's first talk about the term neuro-divergent, because I think many people have heard it but aren't quite sure what it is. So can you tell us what it is and also kind of what categories fit underneath?
Sure. That's a great question. So at understood.org, we're a nonprofit organization who focuses on supporting the 70 million Americans who learn and think differently, like folks who have ADHD and dyslexia. Neurodivergence also includes categories like all the other learning disabilities and autism spectrum disorder. When we talk about neurodivergence, the overall concept really talks about the natural variability in how people process information, how they sort sensations, how they learn, how they communicate, and how they interact with information. It's more about the difference in how people process, not something that needs to be cured or something that we need to fix. But these differences do occur in ways that can make it harder for people to learn or to socialize. On the flip side, it can also be great because people can give us really unique perspectives.
Yes.
So being neurodivergent, is a grand scope of how people think and process.
All right, holidays can be stressful for everyone, but especially for kids with thinking and, thinking differences like ADHD. So why is that more difficult?
Oh, sure. So, yeah, the holidays can be extremely difficult. For folks with ADHD, it can be doubly difficult because a lot of what kids with ADHD need, we're thinking about broadly even the 1 in 5 kids who learn and think differently. They have difficulties in navigating their daily functioning because they need rituals, they need routines, and they need structure. First thing that happens is when we start the holidays, let's get them out of school. Let's take them off their schedules. Let's give them new foods and holiday foods. Things maybe that aren't great for helping them manage their arousal levels or being awake and aware and ready to think. The other part of this that can be so challenging is we put them in environments that are challenging for them. Going to a family party or an event where there's lots of loud music, flashing lights. Perhaps you have that relative or friend who's a little bit less friendly to kids with differences. And you put them in situations where they don't feel comfortable. And in turn, they don't regulate themselves well.
So what are some ways to make holiday events easier?
Yeah, well, the great thing is that there are a lot of things we can do. I'm really excited. This year, understood.org has some really wonderful resources. We have a parent kit for managing the holidays. So I'll give you the top 3 tips.
Okay.
First and foremost, how you approach invitations. An invitation isn't an obligation, it's a choice. Parents can make the choice to say yes or no to events that can help their kids. So if something is not a friendly event for your child, taking a chance and saying, we're not going to go this year could be a really valid option. The second is doing a lot of pre-teaching, which means giving your children input on what's going to happen, who's going to be there. How are we going to navigate the situation if, for example, you need to take a break? Maybe we create a signal so they know that I'm going to go with you and take a walk, or we're going to take a calm space somewhere on the periphery of a room. Finally, we do some fun things like rehearsals. We do a little play acting. What about the situations where, how do you navigate an introduction to someone you don't know? Or a situation where your child gets a gift and it's not something that they're terribly thrilled about from a distant uncle or someone. And you teach them how to graciously respond. So practice can be really helpful in that regard.
Those are great ideas. Now, if you have a child in your life with a learning difference, what are some good gift ideas and also things that you might want to avoid?
Sure. So the thing to keep in mind is that kids are all so individual. And I'll start with the avoid for a second. Because they're so individual, there's no hard and fast rule about what we don't give kids. What I would say is avoid giving them things like books on social skills, math lessons for kids who have dyscalculia, who really don't understand the math side of this. For most of them, it's about talking about their interests. If your child really likes something like science or art or music, letting them dive deep. We call that hyper-focus, where kids can involve and they tend to go into those areas of strength. So magnifying that. Second area is comfort items. Things like tagless t-shirts, comfy throw blankets, or even weighted blankets and fidgets for kids so they can feel comfortable in their environment because it's a really uncomfortable time for so many of them.
Such great ideas, Dr. Kahn. Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.